If you've been paying attention to cubing, in particular the 3x3 scene as of late, you know that there's a particular trend that has just honestly left us all with more questions than answers. So you probably already know that the fastest cuber in the world currently is only 10 years old, of course Yihang Wang, but I've also been talking about the 6-year-olds as of lately, one of which is Xuanyi Zhang, who actually ended up dropping a 5.14 average right after my last video, which is 7th in the world. But as it turns out, just like anything else in life, there are in fact more of them, and some of them, believe it or not, are actually good at big cubes. And again, all of these cases that I've looked at have just made me ask the question, how is this even possible in the first place? How, in a landscape that we've seen over the years predominantly led by teenagers and older, have these kids suddenly just taken over? Well, there's a main point that I want to bring to light firstly, and that's that all of them seem to be dual color neutral. So what I mainly think happened here is that a lot of them tend to have coaches who actually taught them how to solve the cube, and this is just the system they go by, right? Being dual color neutral, and they think that maybe that's the most optimal way to get as fast as possible this quickly. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking about the Chinese cubers who have come to prominence lately, specifically the very, very young ones, but I actually think it's a lot more interesting when we go over to Europe and look at the situation over there, because they also do have some very, very fast young cubers. But the reason I think this is more interesting is because there's a main difference I found when looking into this and comparing the two. You may know that a couple of months ago we first really started to hear about a young cuber from Russia named Timofei Tarasenko, who is also very, very good at 3x3. In an unofficial competition, he actually ended up getting a low 5 average, and he actually has like a really interesting turning style and just solving style in general that I haven't seen before, but the main difference that I was talking about earlier is that he's cracked at a lot of events. So he's basically extremely good at all of the N/Ns, and especially 4x4, where he is 11th in the world with the 2286 average, and of course he has a 554 average on 3x3, but he also has a 7 in OH and a 33 average in Mega Mix. What I'm trying to say is, you know how everybody keeps saying, oh, just wait until Yihang starts doing big cubes, then we're all going to be doomed. Well, I seriously doubt that he'll be better at them than Timofei is right now, but I do think that he has a really different solving style from anything that we've seen in the past. It's kind of like a mixture of a bunch of different cubers. So I'm going to show you what I think is his most interesting solve from his unofficial 5.3 average, just to show you kind of what his solves look like. Alright, so Timofei just does a solve on white cross, and Scramble will be on screen now. Alright, so just taking a look at the Scramble initially, we can notice that our cross pieces are here, 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 and down here. And then he's also going to be tracking the green-red for his first pair. So what he does is he starts off by just putting this cross edge in, down here opposite to this one, orange opposite to red. And then he just has this cross piece, which he actually inserts individually, separate from this one. So you might think, you know, put this one on top of that one, but that's not what he ends up doing. Probably just to keep this pair intact, at least somewhat, so that it's a decently easy pair to start off the F2L. So he just inserts this cross edge, and when he does that, of course, you can see where this edge is going, and this corner is just going to stay the same place. And then he does a D prime to line up all of these cross edges, and then he can just do an R prime to finish off the cross. And now he has these two as his first pair, which he of course plans in inspection, and he just inserts them with L moves like this into the back. And then for his second pair, he actually does something quite interesting here that I don't really see a lot of people doing nowadays. That is just inserting this next green-orange pair right here with all F moves. So he doesn't actually rotate and then do it, which I guess saves him from solving front slots, right? So he does this, and then he just ends up solving the pair like so, which is pretty interesting. I don't really see that many people doing that again today. Anyway, so his next pair are these two, the orange-blue, and he actually does a hedge slammer here, instead of inserting it with F moves, which actually pair up this pair as well. He does a hedge slammer, which also pairs it up, but it doesn't keep edges, but I don't think he was really caring about that because he's just turning so fast here. So anyway, he inserts it into the back, and then again here, a very interesting thing he does is, instead of just doing the standard alg, which starts with back soon like that, he actually does an alg that does 2 sledgehammers, and then you insert this pair. And that solves OLL. So that's very interesting. He seems to really like F moves, which I think is a very integral part of his solving style. And then he'll just go into this T perm with a U2 AUF. And since he actually likes F moves so much, I thought that he was going to go into what's called a Mackie T perm right here, where basically what you do is that, and then you actually do a U move instead of a U prime, and then you do an F with your left index finger, and then you insert the pair. And that basically just skips the U2 AUF on the T perm. But anyways, he had a regular T perm. He did it normally, with a U2AUF, and that solves the cube. So that was definitely one of the most interesting breakdowns I've ever done. I think mainly because of the F moves and the amount of those that he used. He seemed to like almost entirely avoid rotations in favor of just inserting pairs with F moves, especially that second one, which isn't commonly taught. You know, it's commonly taught to just rotate and then solve the next one. But I guess if you are getting sub 5s with this solving style, I can't really argue against it. On top of that, the OLL alg was really odd. I had never seen that one personally before be used in a solve by anybody. But again, just playing into his use of the F moves. But yeah, overall just a really interesting execution of a solve there from Timofei. I didn't really expect that upon just looking at his solve at first glance, just watching the video, right? But breaking it down, it was just a really interesting solving style there to see. But it's not just about him in terms of young European cubers that are already insane at multiple events. Because remember the kid that broke the 2x2 world record single back in November, Theodore Zader? Well, he's also really good at 3x3 with a low 6 average, and he's also, I mean, he's decent at 4x4, I guess. I mean, just look at him, like what are you gonna say about that? I mean, he's solving a 4x4 with this size of hands. Speaking of which, a 13 average on OH. How is that even possible for a man of this size? And oh yeah, of course, he has a 1.10 average for 2x2 with the world record single. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the differences that we've been seeing between how these kids cube in China and then in Europe. It's just really interesting because in China, they mainly focus on like a main 3 or 4 events, I would say, versus in Europe, you know, they do what we do here in the US where they just do literally every event. And I can't wait to see what this looks like when both of the European cubers I talked about today actually compete in the European Championships later this summer, so that should be interesting. But yeah, besides that, YouTube's actually been acting pretty strange lately, I'll just put it like that. So if you can even see this video, consider yourself lucky, I guess, if you like me. If you don't, I don't know why you click on the video in the first place, but my bad. But yeah, I'll try to get that figured out. In the meantime, though, I am not going to forget the daily reminder. Doesn't matter any of the circumstances, right? You are still slower than a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, whatever you want to be slower than. It's still a child. That was pretty awkward. But besides that, yeah, that's about it. See ya.